Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torres, tuning in on a late afternoon here in Barcelona and accompanied by my most beloved Christina Nicolau. How are you, Christina?
I'm doing very well, Daniel, in early evening here in Athens, Greece. Also very excited about Amsterdam.
Yes, because we're going live in Amsterdam tomorrow not tomorrow, sorry, next week. It feels like tomorrow just because of the amount of pressure. We do live events, as probably our usual listeners know. We've done 3 so far of the big ones, and Amsterdam is our 4th one. So super excited about that. Actually, our guest today is Dutch. But I wanted to start by saying when we agreed to interview who we're interviewing today, I thought these products have been with me for life. Like I remember it must have been around 2004 or 2005 or something like that, when MSN Messenger was super popular. I don't know if you remember that, Christina. And
Absolutely.
my first webcam, I don't know if it was my first Logitech product, but I remember vividly a white and light blue webcam that my mother bought for me so I could video chat with my friends on MSN. Do you remember that?
I absolutely remember that, though my parents were not big on letting me chat on MSN. They thought it was a devil stuff. But they do have the latest kind of household acquisition. My husband is very, very proud of his MX mouse and kind of parades it around as I've got the best mouse that there is nowadays.
And yeah, and then the other day I just was at my desk and I put my head up and I realized the camera Logitech, my keyboard Logitech, my mouse Logitech. Obviously they come in a pack, so I bought both of them. So why am I saying that? Because we're accompanied by no other than Logitech's CEO, Hanneke Faber. Hello, Hanneke. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to hear about all your Logitech products. That's great.
What was your first Logitech product? Do you remember?
Ooh, it definitely was a mouse many years ago, and that's quite fitting because, as we like to say here, the mouse built this house. That's how the company started. 44 years ago, we just had our 44th anniversary, well, we didn't quite invent the mouse, but this was definitely the company that commercialized the mouse and brought it to the masses. So we love our mice, although these days, of course, we're much more than just a mouse. The mouse built this house.
Yeah, I need to ask you, Hanneke, where are you logging in today from? Because I know that you guys are 44 years old, but you're both in Switzerland and in the US and the West Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are dual headquarters in Switzerland and in the Silicon Valley, and we're also dual listed. So we listed on the Swiss Stock Exchange and on the NASDAQ here in the US. And that really goes way back. The founders of Logitech were a Swiss and 2 Italians, but they were here in the Silicon Valley studying at Stanford when they started the company. So from the very beginning, we had this, European Silicon Valley start. And I love that because when you combine the best of Switzerland and the Silicon Valley, you really get a pretty potent mix. The Swiss have this long-term view. They're accurate, they're precise, reliable, all those good things. And then, of course, in the Silicon Valley, where I'm calling from today, which is my base, the dynamism, the innovation, that is very palpable here. So we love that cocktail.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting day that we speak today, Hanneke, because as I was mentioning to you before, just before the call, I obviously was on LinkedIn, which is like my second house, and I saw your video announcing Q2 results for Logitech, which seems to have been very positive. So first of all, congratulations for that, because it's not a given in these days.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's a lot of uncertainty out there in the market between tariffs and inflation and interest rates and U.S. government shutdowns and rare earth mineral restrictions and you name it. I can go on. So there's a
Mhm.
lot happening out in the market. So we're very proud that we delivered yet another quarter of really good top line and bottom line growth, great cash as well. And I think we're doing that because we're sticking to our long-term strategies. The very first one of which is delivering superior products and innovation for our consumers. And again, that's why it was so fun to hear that, Christina actually held up her new MX Master 4, which is a fabulous new Logitech product that's off to a great start. That's our bread and butter, providing superior products and innovation.
Yeah, long-term strategy in the age of immediacy, I think, pays off. But I think you have to be pretty strong also to stick to it, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've done this year, after Liberation Day, when all the tariffs were announced, those absolutely impact us. So we said on the one side, we want to stick to our long-term strategy, which is all about superior products and innovation, doubling down on business to business, which is a big opportunity for us, building an iconic brand, and being an operations powerhouse. Those are kind of the pillars of our long-term strategy, and we've continued to stick with those. At the same time, we put in place a few principles for this year, more in-year principles. The first one of which is play offense. At a difficult time, we are perfectly positioned versus our competitors to play offense and to continue to invest and to continue to drive demand generation. So that's one. Second one is rigorous cost discipline, which is hard, but at a time like this, when times are difficult, you got to control costs. And again, you saw in our results that we're doing that with excellence. And then the third one is agility. I mean, things really are changing on a daily, almost on an hourly basis. So our teams have to almost love that and embrace it and move fast.
Yeah, which is and it's interesting that you mentioned play offense, agility with rigorous cost discipline, because sometimes this seems like a one or the other, no? And it's possible to do both, no? I think that this Silicon Valley Swiss duality kind of exemplifies that, right?
Exactly. Actually, I hadn't, yeah, connected those two, but you're absolutely right. Again, Swiss are probably more about, rigorous cost discipline, and the Valley is a little more about leaning in and playing offense. And we can combine those. And that's a pretty special culture.
And I wanted to ask you about your own upbringing, because you mentioned this duality about being European and being American. Who exemplifies that better than you, no? Because
Yeah.
obviously you look Dutch and you have a Dutch name, but you don't necessarily sound Dutch. Because I know that you tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it was definitely one of the reasons that attracted me to Logitech for sure is this, again, European American duality. I am Dutch. I grew up in Amsterdam. Delighted you guys are going to be in Amsterdam, next week. Actually, I was born in Amsterdam. I grew up in The Hague, but yeah, totally Dutch. I had a chance after high school to go to the U.S. on a diving scholarship, so very random. But I was a good springboard diver, a national champion. I met I was at the World Championships when I was 16, representing Holland, and at those championships, I met the coach of the U.S. national team was the coach at the University of Houston. So he said to me, "Do you want to come to America?" And, at the time, my parents would never have been able to afford to send me to America. So this was like a super cool opportunity. I'm dating myself, but this was before the internet. So we looked at the atlas, I remembered, my parents and I, to see where is Houston. It was in the orange zone where it's nice and warm. This was attractive to a Dutch person. So off I went. And I'll forever be grateful for the opportunity to obviously do sports, but also get a great education in America. So I ended up staying, getting my bachelor's and my master's degree there, and then started my career working at Procter and Gamble. So this is the FMCG guys. So a great FMCG company, and I actually started in Holland, but my career with P&G took me to all kinds of places. So yeah, that's the beginning of the story.
And by the way, super impressive diving achievements. So congrats for that as well.
Scary to dive.
Super scary.
But on the scary part, right? Do you think that all these experiences that you had before even you started working, do you think that they ultimately influence kind of your leadership style or how you view competition or you build resilience?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the biggest thing in diving specifically, you're up on a 10-meter platform, 33 feet up in the air. It is scary. It is always scary. Even today, it'd be very scary if I went up there. But even when you're doing it every day, it is scary. And it has to be scary because it's actually quite dangerous if you make a mistake. So you have to have the adrenaline and it has to be a little scary. So, when I then started my career and you have to do things and people ask you, oh, aren't you scared to do a presentation for 1,000 people or a big sales meeting or whatever? I'm like, have you ever been up on 10-meter? That is scary.
Exactly.
So I think that was actually great prep. And of course, there's the many other things in sports, the discipline, the 10,000 hours you have to put in, the fact that you're, on a diving board at 6 a.m. every morning. So that teaches hard work. And then it also teaches teamwork. So all of those things are important, both in sports and in a working life. So I'm thankful. I think sports are fabulous preparation for work. And I always tell, young parents, make sure you put your kids in one sport or the other, because it's not just fun, it's also a great life prep.
And what about going to the other side of the world? Your parents are Dutch, you're Dutch, you've always lived there, and then randomly you get the offer to move to Houston, which now the world is much smaller than it was, but at the time, like, you could probably just call like once a week. Like,
Completely.
what
Once a
about
month.
that?
Once a
Once a
month.
month.
Once a month. Yes. Yeah, yeah. God, it seems like I'm talking about the Middle Ages now, but
But even I remember that world. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, once a month I called my parents and it was very brief because it was expensive. And then we wrote letters. Oh my God, so romantic. But it's completely different now. So when my kids went to college, all our children are in their early 20s. When they went to college far away, yeah, we talked on FaceTime all the time.
but how was that
So different
experience for
time.
you personally? Like, it must have been like interesting to say a word.
Yeah. Yeah, you end up in Texas as a girl from Holland. In Texas, everything is bigger and better in Texas, so it is a very different world. I'll ask you a question. There's only two kinds of music in Texas. What are those?
Country?
Country and Western. Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's cowboy country. It's huge. Texas is bigger than Germany and France combined. So, um, it was really good for me as an 18-year-old to go there. I, I probably was overconfident. I chose journalism as my major, even though I didn't speak English real well, which,
Wow.
um, but that also was great. I really, learned English well, obviously. And journalism was a great major. I think it's a great foundation for everything, because you learn to be curious, you learn to ask questions, you learn to write well. So, uh, and it was just a lot of fun, to be in college in Texas. Friday night lights, football, the whole shebang. Again, I'm super grateful for that time, and it taught me that the world is much, much bigger than, one small European country. So, again, that definitely shaped me, before I started working.
I love how you're reflecting on all kind of those lessons that you got from completely different moments that have nothing to do with FMCG or the industry that you were in. And I have to admit, I'm very curious. I was going through your LinkedIn profile and I was looking at the purpose that you have there. So do well by doing good. And I'm really wondering, like, where did this originate from and how has this evolved for you over the years?
Yeah. Yeah, so doing well by doing good, that's how I like to talk about, yeah, my purpose really in life. Doing well means I want to win, and that's the sports background again. I want my teams here at Logitech or previous companies. I want us to win. I want us to gain market share. I want us to do really well, grow sales, grow profit. All of those things are important. I love that success and I love getting better every day. But I want to do that by doing well for people and planet. And those are not two different things. The word by is really important. It's sometimes easy to like do well and do good and kind of, put a barrier between those. I think it's really brilliant when you can do well by doing good. So I love it. For example, at Logitech, we are real pioneers in sustainability and sustainable products. I love it when that creates preference with our consumers and customers because our products use less energy. So our B2B customers really like that because it saves money for them. Our products use recycled plastic, and we're really the only one in the industry that uses 70% recycled plastic. And we have just changed all our packaging to carton board from plastic. Our consumers love that because, all else being equal, they'd rather make a more sustainable choice. So that grows the business, but it helps us do well by doing good. And I really love it when we're able to do that.
And I think there's even like an internal or management element to that, which is like doing well, the career-wise doesn't mean that you have to like put down other people, right? And so on.
Yeah, to lift yourself
Yeah,
up.
that's
Exactly.
so true as well. And it also means giving different people chances over time. So I hadn't thought of it that way, Daniel, but it's a great way to think about it as well. People, I firmly believe we will do well, win in the market with more diverse teams. Because we're a super global business. So I need people from all over the world working on our business. I need both men and women. We need people with different ethnicities, different backgrounds. We need a good amount of people who are LGBTIQ. Diversity is really important because we serve diverse communities and because when you have diverse teams, you get better ideas. When people come from different backgrounds, you just get more creativity. So yeah, that's another way to look at doing well by doing good.
Well, it's great when you have a purpose and it can be applied to multiple things, isn't it?
Yeah. No, and certainly that goes actually. So I talked about Logitech just now, but again, you guys are the FMCG guys. So many examples at Unilever, especially of doing well by doing good. So I loved working on Hellmann's, for example. Mayonnaise. You think what can be the purpose of mayonnaise? But we identified that one of the big problems in the world is food waste. We throw away 40% of all the food that's grown, which is crazy. But all those leftovers in your fridge, what are they better with? Mayonnaise, of course. So we came up with a campaign called Make Taste, Not Waste. And we tripled the Hellmann's business over 5 years, which from $1 billion to $3 billion. So again, a great example of doing well, really doing well in the market by doing good, reducing food waste. So super fun.
I hope there's a few CEOs and activist investors taking note of this point. You mentioned that you finished your degree in the US, and then you went to the Netherlands to join P&G. How was that, and why do you think you decided to join P&G, and in consequence the FMCG industry?
And from a journalist major, actually.
Yeah. So I finished my journalism major at Houston, and then I finished early, and I had another year of diving scholarship left. So I actually also got an MBA at U of H. So by that time, I had kind of a combination of journalism and business. So I can't say it was really well thought out. I applied to a bunch of companies in Holland. And at Procter, they had this like little mini internship in the summer where they invited you for a week and and you got to meet a bunch of people and did a case study. And I was like, oh, these are really fun people at P&G. And so they offered me a job and I went to work there in Rotterdam. And I've never, ever regretted it. In fact, again, very thankful to Procter because Procter is a school of marketing, a school of brand building. And when you start, you don't think you'll stay there for 20 years, which I ended up doing, but it's also a school in that you constantly get new opportunities. So I started in Holland. Then actually, my fiance at the time, who I had met in Houston, um, is a Greek American, and he had moved to Athens to do work there. So I asked Procter, can I go to Athens too? They said yes. So I got to work in Greece for a number of years with P&G. Then they asked me to move to Switzerland to the European headquarters, and I went to Cincinnati because that is Mecca for Procter, the global headquarters. So there was always new challenges, new ways of learning things, and just a really great company to as a foundation for a career. So I'm very thankful for that.
And what was your first role at P&G?
Oh, well, it was grand. I was the assistant brand manager, Vicks Vapo Rub for Holland. You can imagine this was a giant business.
Iconic
No.
brand, though. Everybody knows the product.
Yeah.
Iconic brand,
I
great
don't
route
know.
to market, very specialized though.
Yes. Anyway, it is a great brand. It is an iconic brand. But I remember my first winter there, I was just hoping that, there was like going to be a really bad flu season because that would help us.
And after P&G, you had quite a career. Like you went into retail, Unilever, now in tech. So I have two questions. The first one is, how come you made those decisions? And the second one is, tell us about the cultural shocks that you experienced.
How I made my decisions. I don't believe in like trying to plan too far ahead, but you come to a few crossings in life. So after 20 years at P&G, I had a wonderful time at P&G, but I had a call for a role in retail and I thought, wow, I'm in my early 40s. I can probably stay at P&G for another 10 years and retire. And I was like, oh my God, that's scary. So I kind of had the itch to do something else, and doing retail, which is adjacent to FMCG, I think is actually a great move for anyone in FMCG who wants to do something where you can bring something but also learn something. There's a lot that you bring, but I learned so much at Ahold and Unilever. So I was in charge of e-commerce there. This was 2014, so e-commerce really was just starting. I learned so much from running a much more technical organization with a lot of engineers. We grew the business explosively because this was the beginning of e-commerce and grocery e-commerce. And I would say the shock, Christine, there was, they say FMCG is fast-moving consumer goods. Oh my God, compared to retail, it is the slowest thing on earth.
Oh, really?
FMCG retail moves so much faster because you really know on an everyday basis, is something selling or not? You have all the data from the loyalty cards and from e-commerce. You know exactly what's happening, and you make changes on a weekly and monthly basis. Whereas, I'd come from P&G, where I think still today it takes a number of years to launch something new. So I would say that the
Go through all
speed
of the gates.
Yes, exactly. So I have to say I really love that in retail, the speed that it moves at. Um, and then so I was there for 4 years, really enjoyed getting that taste of retail. And then I got another call from my old friend Paul Pullman, who I knew from P&G, on whether I was interested in coming to Unilever to run their European business. And I did that for a little bit and for just a really short time. And then for most of my time at Unilever, I ran the global foods business. And I would say coming out of retail and knowing that speed, I certainly try to bring some of that speed into Unilever. And I hope we did some of that. What I really loved at Unilever, Paul is a legend. And he really, grew the business with purpose, which was fantastic to see and to be a part of for a bit before he retired. Um, and I also really enjoyed my time at Unilever, running a big global foods business. Food is so important in people's lives. But again, it's a place where you can really do well by doing good. I told you about Hellmann's, but Knorr is another brand, Knorr, where we really started to implement regenerative agriculture practices in our sourcing, which is very important, again, because it's important for the planet, but it was also critically important for the resilience of our supply chain. You can't make ketchup if you don't have tomatoes. And with climate change, tomatoes don't grow like they used to. You have to change the way you farm. And with a big company like Unilever, you can make changes at scale in regen ag. So also loved Unilever. I'm a privileged person. And then I got a call for this job, which obviously is a little different in tech. But again, what a great opportunity to do something that's a little adjacent because, we make products that people use. It's still a consumer good, a mouse, a keyboard, a webcam. But obviously, smack into Silicon Valley, quite technical. So again, I had a lot to learn, but I'm really enjoying this role as well.
Yeah, and Hanneke, I think that I've seen you have a public presence for a number of years, I think, if I'm not wrong, since the days that you were at Ahold. And you've, I think, actively built a public image as an executive. But I think that you've done it, this is my humble opinion, in an authentic way. Still being corporate, but still being authentic. Like, why have you actively decided to do that? Is that just like a natural inclination? And how you found that point of being
Mm.
authentic? Maybe recording a lot of times, I don't know, but
No, no, no. Smita can vouch for me, but this is one go, everything in one go. Yeah. Um, it's a good question. It's not one that I've been asked about a lot, but I think the first thing is to know it's all about the company. It's not about me. That's really important for me in terms of, social media presence. It has to be about the company. But I do think in this day and age, it's important for company leaders to be present on social because that's where you connect with your stakeholders. First and foremost, your users, your consumers, your customers. Second, critically important, your employees who look more on social media than on your internal channels. But third, also media, investors, everyone's on social. So I feel the company obviously needs to be on social, but I think leadership also needs to be there to give a little bit of a face to a company. And certainly as a CEO, that is important. But I love it when our people around Logitech, there's many of them who are quite active on social media. And it gives a face to a company rather than this faceless behemoth. So yeah, that's why I do it, and I try to, yeah, not be like completely corporate about it.
no, I think you do it in a good way.
Mm.
In that people like you, I think Doug McMillan from Walmart as well. And you're right, you talk about the business, but let's say that when I spoke with you today, I didn't feel like it was the first time I spoke with you, which is kind of like,
Yeah.
it gives that proximity, no? As well.
Yeah. 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 And again, our stakeholders are really important. So I want them to feel like this company is not just a black hole. There's actual people who work here and who try to do the right thing by them.
Usually when we get a guest here, Hanneke, we actually ask them to kind of describe a bit what their role is so that the listeners can get to understand a little bit better. And I guess when they see the word CEO, they probably just assume. But if you are in the bar with your friends, how would you describe what it is that you do?
Yeah. Well, so I am the chief executive officer at Logitech, which means, the buck stops here. I have to run this show. And that means, what do? We make fabulous, superior products. We build a great brand. And we go to market in more than 150 countries. And we also run a big operation, a manufacturing and a logistics operation to make sure all those millions of products get to the right people. So I have a fabulous team who do all of that, because clearly there's no way you can do all of this alone. But as a CEO, I try to set the strategy and be really clear on that, and then support the team, be their cheerleader, to make sure our head of operations can do what he does best, our chief engineers can do what they do best, our business group leaders do what they do best, etc. So that's what I do, and a lot of that actually is living on an airplane and being out into our countries.
If you travel a lot, I travel quite a lot as well. Not as much as you probably, but any secrets that you have to cope better with the traveling?
Never check a bag. Never.
Yeah.
And I would say the other thing, but this may not be popular, traveling is not a team sport. Once you get on the ground, you get together with the team, but I think the actual act of traveling, running through airports, all of that, best done individually.
Oh, I feel for you. Yeah.
Also, like when you think about it, travel habits are something like really, it kind of is a summary of our personality in a lot of multidimensional ways, and that means it's very, very personal, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, but once you get on the ground, of course, then it's all about the team and spending time with the team. But the actual travel, not a team sport. And don't check a bag. Certainly don't check a bag when you're traveling with me, because I'm not going to be waiting for your bag. Yeah.
Great advice for your next travel companion. And around Logitech, like when you spoke with the company, with the board, etc., and what excited you more about the company? We know that the business surged during the pandemic. Like, what was the context, and why did you decide to join that?
Yeah. So, yeah, this company really surged during the pandemic because, of course, everyone was either home working or home playing games, and we are the market leader in work and play. So everyone needed webcams and keyboards and mice and cameras. Um, After COVID, of course, that was a little bit of a sugar high. So the company struggled a little bit. But when they called me for this role, I could see that, the foundations were really solid and there was a lot of room for growth. So that excited me, having a chance to grow a business. And I think, that's what we're all about these days. We've now had 6 quarters of growth under our belts, and we're really growing, which is great. So growth was one. The other thing really was the values of the company. Life's too short to work in a place where you don't feel the values align with yours. And the very first value of Logitech, we state those online, is equality and environment. And that really, really is important to me. Again, equality is about people and about diverse teams. And environment is obviously about sustainability. So to have a chance to work at a company that has a lot of room for growth and where the values align with yours, that's a jackpot for me.
Well, definitely sounds like it, also with the results today. And we have heard you online mentioning also a lot about the foundational capabilities. Could you summarize that also a little bit for our listeners?
Um, so again, I think foundational capabilities start from values, actually. So equality and environment, a very important value at Logitech. A second one, and this is in the words of one of our founders, Daniel Borrell, success is never final, is a value. And that is so true, especially in this business. It moves so fast. Technology is moving so fast today. AI is changing everything. So yes, we may just have had a good quarter, but it's super important for us to know that that means nothing going forward, because success is never final. And you just feel that in the people here. We're always looking forward at what's next and how do we continue to stay ahead. And then the third value that I think is very important here at Logitech, it's called hungry but humble. Um, yeah, we're hungry for growth, for doing fun things, for innovation, but quite humble. And that's maybe again the Swissness of the company. We know we're small out here in the Silicon Valley. Oh my gosh, all our neighbors here in San Jose are these gargantuan, magnificent seven companies. So we have to be humble, and I also like that in the company. There's not a lot of arrogance. There's not a lot of politics. We're yeah, we're humble at heart. So I think those are important foundations, and those have been here. These are not mine. I was attracted to those, but they've been here since the start, since 44 years ago. And then on top of that, we've put a strategy with some real strategic choices, and it's not short term. I think that's a strategy that will last for the next 5 or 10 years. Um, but every year we look at the strategy and we see, ooh, do we need to fine tune it? But the foundations of that strategy are our purpose as a company, which we call extending human potential in work and play. Extend is a riff on the mouse, it extends your arm kind of, but we extend human potential. We're a tech company, but we make humans a little bit better. And we do that in work and in play. We've decided made some pretty clear choices on where to play, which means we play with one brand, the Logitech brand. That was a little different before I got here. They were trying to build a multi-brand company, but Logitech is a fabulous brand with very broad shoulders, so we're focused on one brand. But we do that around the world. And importantly, we've decided to double down on the B2B channel, because historically we're a B2C company, but B2B is a huge opportunity for us. So those are kind of the where to play choices. And then we've made our how to win choices, which are all about superior products and innovation, building an iconic brand, and taking real climate action. And underneath all of that is an operations powerhouse. And this operations team is amazing. And in this last year, oh my gosh, with tariffs and all kinds of other fun and games, they do a great job, still delivering great quality at a great cost and great service.
Yeah, and you talk about the brand, which is interesting because obviously the categories where you play, it's easy to be commoditized. And I think that when you buy a Logitech product,
Yeah.
that webcam, look, I'm gonna confess, once I bought like one God knows what brand webcam, two of them actually, and they lasted like 6 months. This
Yeah.
Logitech webcam I've had for 2 years and it's been flawless, right? So
Yeah.
I think that
Thank
when
God.
in a commoditized category, when your brand actually delivers, it makes a huge difference, no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, that was another thing that I liked about Logitech from the start. We have a brand that has 90% plus awareness in all the big countries in the world, actually big and small. So, I get in a taxi in New York, they know Logitech. I get in a taxi in Berlin, they know Logitech, but also in Kazakhstan, they know Logitech. So it's a brand with great awareness and with some really good foundations. So, we stand for reliability and quality. So thank you for just saying that. I think what we can still do is make it truly iconic. And for that, we have an opportunity to be a little more in pop culture than maybe we have been in the past. So one of the things I'm excited about on the gaming side is our partnership with McLaren. You don't get more pop culture these days than McLaren and Lando and Oscar. So we just launched a new racing series that is in partnership with McLaren, developed with their sim drivers. Incredible technology. You sit in with that sim wheel in the chair and it's like you're driving, like you're actually on the track. You feel the skids. It's amazing. But again, it's also in pop culture because Formula One and McLaren are so in pop culture at the moment. So yeah, all that to say, brand is really, really key. And we'll continue to try and make Logitech a truly
And
iconic
and
brand.
it's interesting because coming from FMCG, and that's normally the type of people we interview, we never really speak about the product. It's a lot about like the aura of the brand and making it culturally relevant and so on. And here really have like two levers in Logitech, no? Because you have the product lever, which obviously is like where your foundation is, but
Yeah.
it's fascinating, know that you have all that potential in terms of like brand building, which the brand is, as you said, it's already there, but how can you make it more relevant and iconic, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
But also the product builds the brand, right? That's what it did for you, Daniel, because you had a really good, solid product, then the brand earned its place in your head.
Absolutely. I think for many years in the early years of Logitech, as you say, Christine, the product was the marketing. There was no marketing really. It was just a great product. But we have an opportunity to continue to have absolutely killer superior products, but also, add a little bit more modern marketing to it. And I'm very excited about what's happening on that. And first and foremost, actually in China. And so one of the things when I came, our Chinese business was not in good shape. We're the number one. We were still the number one, both on gaming and in personal workspace, but we were losing share. We were losing sales even. And some people said at the time, well, that happens in cars. It happens to lots of foreign brands. You just better give up. I absolutely did not want to give up. So we put a China for China team in place in Shanghai to, on top of our global innovation pipeline, develop products for China, because the Chinese gamer especially is incredibly sophisticated. So we've done that, but also to modernize our marketing in China and to really be in the Chinese communities, the Chinese gaming community, the Chinese community of, there's some fun communities in China. For example, the community of fans of customizing keyboards, big community. These are the kinds of communities that you need to be in and you need to allow to generate content for you. And our China business is on fire. We saw it in the first quarter, in the second quarter, we're growing more than 20%. We're now growing share in personal workspace. Share trends in gaming are improving. So with that right combination of superior product and great marketing, we can win even in the toughest market, which is China.
And it's clear that China makes you excited right now. What else makes you very excited, Hanneke, about the future?
Oh, so many things. I think we have a really kind of balanced portfolio in our business. So gaming is one part of it, and the gaming market around the world is, continues to grow. People are gaming more. Gaming is becoming more social. More women are gaming. So that's a good backdrop.
Right.
And again, we are developing loads of exciting products, including McLaren in racing, but also our new mouse, the Super Strike, which is fabulous. So gaming, a lot of upside in gaming. Then we have our video conferencing business, where we're the global market leader. That's a B2B business. And as many companies are figuring out what to do in terms of ways of working and return to the office, they are also redoing offices, many of them. And that's, where we come in to help them make sure that those are great places to work, both when you're in the office and when you're not in the office, collaborating with others in the office. So that's a good space, video conferencing. And then the final space, which is, we call it personal workspace. That's kind of our bread and butter, where we started: the mice, the webcams, the keyboards. And there's a lot of upside there too. That new MX Master 4, that is a beast. It's off to a record start. It is just such a wonderful tool for advanced users, probably like your husband, Christina. If you're a software engineer or a finance bro, and a real Excel jockey, the MX Master 4 just makes your life so much better. You're going to be so much faster, so much more accurate. So I love it when we, make people's lives a little easier through our tools.
Meant to ask you as well. you haven't mentioned AI in the whole conversation. What's going on? Is
Yeah.
that, how do you see that? Like, do you see that as a more like a ways of working thing, or is it a thing that you will think will impact like your business per se?
Oh, for sure. We love AI. In the world of AI, um, hardware is sexy again. And you see that with all the big players. Because AI needs hardware. AI needs video, AI needs audio, AI needs data to be as good as it can be. And our products are kind of the eyes, the ears, and the hands of AI. Um, so we're quite popular also with the big companies these days in terms of wanting to collaborate with us. But AI offers us many opportunities to make our products better. So maybe a quick example is our latest video camera, video conferencing camera. It's called the Sight, and you set it in the middle of the table rather than at the front. It's like having Steven Spielberg in the damn meeting room. That camera um, obviously knows who's speaking, but then it frames that person, so it produces your meeting beautifully. If the two of you are speaking, it's going to put two of you on the screen, and it's going to make sure that it switches seamlessly between you.
We need
If
this,
I'm
Christina. We need it for the podcast.
You totally do. You totally do. When I'm opening a packet of chips, it knows that I'm not speaking, that this is another sound, and it's not going to focus on me. So it's truly an AI agent. It's been trained to act as a producer. That's a much better product than, kind of the dumb video conferencing products of 5, 6 years ago. Same is true in headsets. AI-enabled two-way noise cancellation is amazing, and it's in our newest headsets. So AI makes our products better. And then, of course, like every other company on the planet, it's also helping us be more productive internally.
And I guess you also need really great products to be capturing the inputs, because you know what I'm hearing most in the office when it comes to AI? Garbage in, garbage out. And it holds very, very true to a lot
Yeah.
of the things that I see every day.
Yes, so true. And again, so you need great video, you need great audio to have the AI know the context and the content. So no, we're super excited. I feel like with AI, the world is coming to Logitech. So this is great.
Look, all the new products and all the great things that are coming in the future can be super exciting. But I want to actually come back to the part of the creative distraction, Hanneke. Like, how do you take a decision perhaps to leave a very successful product behind because now there is something else that will create the value and the growth?
Yeah. I think sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. So for example, we just launched the MX Master 4. We will not immediately leave all the other MX products behind, because there's going to be the super advanced users who love the 4, but there's also going to be people who still enjoy, the MX Master or the MX Master 3. So I think it's always you kind of decide on a case by case basis. Pricing also comes into this. You do need to cover the price range, because not everyone can afford the very most expensive thing or wants to spend that kind of money. So yeah, sometimes we leave things, we discontinue things, but often we actually add to lineups to serve different consumer segments and different needs.
Listening to you, Hanneke, throughout this episode, first of all, it's very inspiring. And also, I keep on reflecting, like, on myself, that you were talking about all the decisions that you're making and how you have had this great career, and ultimately you're a female role model, and we don't get a lot of these of people who have had a career such as yours. And coming also like from a woman who's kind of like at the beginning, or let's say beginning of her career, I do wonder,
Mhm.
like, how have you experienced these spaces that you have worked in, being also many times, I presume, a minority?
Yeah. So I feel quite fortunate that in FMCG, especially in my early years at P&G, there were actually quite a few female role models. And role models are so critical because, if you don't see anyone, over higher up than you who looks a little bit like you think it's not possible. Um, I keep thinking back at my own country, Holland. We have elections today. We've never had a female prime minister. It's like, come
Well,
on, what century are we in? So little girls in Holland, they don't think they can be the prime minister because there's just never been one. So anyway, that to say that at Procter, I was quite lucky because I always had, the boss of my boss or the boss of my boss of my boss who was a woman. Women like Jenna Drosos, Deb Henretta. There were women quite high up, Susan Arnold. So it didn't feel to me like something that was impossible because these were, not just really good businesswomen, but they also had children and they were kind of normal. So it was something like, okay, this can be done. So I give them a lot of credit for showing the way. And I hope that today in tech, where I am now, and where unfortunately there's far fewer women in the C-suite than in FMCG. I hope that hopefully for a few young women out here in tech, they can see me and they can think, okay, well, she's not actually completely weird. So maybe I can be like her.
And they will listen to the podcast as well and see how human and down to earth you are.
so from Hanneke, in this podcast, we have a few traditions, but one of them is to ask our famous last question, which is if you went back to yourself as you were graduating in the US and starting your work career at Procter, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Yeah, I've actually given that question a lot of thought recently because my two younger children, who are 23 and 21, just started their first jobs. So they are like literally my younger selves. um, and you know what? The advice I gave them is make friends at work. And that might sound a little superficial, but I think it's actually really important. Um, it makes work more fun when you have some friends at work that you do some things with outside of work as well. It gives you a support network. It allows you to learn from each other. And some of my best friends are still my friends that I made in my early days at P&G. And then actually at Ahold and at Unilever, I also later on made a few good friends. And I just think we spend so much time at work. You want to spend it and have a few friends at work. So that's the advice I would have. And then, of course, there's the network element of that later on. People leave companies. And then if you have some friends in places, that can also help your career or hiring people or whatever. But it's not even the most important. It's kind of just a fun element of it, the support network element of it. So I told my children, go out of your way to make a few good friends at work early on.
This was Hanneke Faber, CEO at Logitech. Christine, what are your takeaways?
First of all, what a wonderful conversation and what a true role model Hanneke is. So I'm very, very happy that we managed to have her as a guest. And thank you for making that happen, Daniel.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You know that I just bring the guests here so you can meet amazing people and also our audience can. So it's my pleasure. And I think, first of all, I think it was quite interesting. I kind of knew, but that combination between Switzerland and Silicon Valley of the company, I thought was quite fascinating. But then as we were talking at the beginning, it kind of all made sense, no?
I thought exactly the same. I was listening to some of kind of more the corporate material that you can find out there. And I was thinking exactly how this whole, Swiss engineering and clock thing, together with the innovation of the Silicon Valley, is coming wonderfully in kind of like a package in order to be able to produce the ultimate brand that Logitech is.
Yeah, totally. What else? I think very interesting, like, yeah, good or bad things can happen to us when we're young, but that definitely marks our life. And I think a lot of it is about like embracing it. So I think the fact that she was offered at a very young age to move to the other side of the world She took it over, moving to the US for university. Then went back to the Netherlands to join P&G. But then her fiancé at the time, now husband, was in Athens and took the opportunity to move to Athens with Procter. And that obviously were decisions that were both professional and personal. I think a lot of it depends on how you embrace it, how you embrace them. You can actually gain a lot also by listening to what you want to do personally, take it on professionally. I think it can add a lot of value.
Exactly. A lot of things are happening to us, as you're saying, but also every time something is coming up, you have to make a choice. And the way that you see how Hanneke has made her choices over the years clearly also reflects a lot of the great values and parts of her character that were built early on, as he also mentioned, like being fearless in a sense. Um, because of how scary diving can be. And for sure, that's an experience that's kind of like how can we say that? It's kind of like written in a foundational way in yourself rather than something that you get to learn.
I mean, you
Um,
know how much 10 meters is like a second floor of a building. I think it's like from the
third,
balcony
third.
on third
On
floor.
average, the floor is 3 meters.
It's very high.
Yeah, absolutely.
I liked
Um,
also that you asked her, by the way, about her doing well by doing good. I thought that was very interesting on being competitive, but at the same time, like have a positive impact.
I guess like a lot of companies are kind of leaning that direction, at least in the past 5 to 10 years. But I don't think anyone has kind of like distilled it in that way, which
Mm.
is very simple at its core, but it's also essential. And I loved also the examples that she brought up and how, she was connecting things that they're doing now, things that she does personally together with her past and kind of like the more of the FMCG part of her life as well.
Yeah. Apart from that, I think that one interesting thing, we didn't talk about it, but I think it's fascinating and a good reminder to people. 20 years at Procter and Gamble.
Yes.
That kill her career? It did not. But very often I get people that ask me, oh, like, have I been too long in one place? And if I stay another 5 years in this place, I'll be out of the market. No, it's not true. It all depends if you're continuously learning things, right?
And I do have a lot of people at P&G still. And I have to tell you that when you're so long in a place, especially a place like P&G, it feels like there's no life outside Procter. And it's a very, very hard decision to make. And those people have not spent already 20 years there. So another kind of like scary move and decision to take, which ultimately paid off. And that's actually one of the things you mentioned, which I really loved because we're the FMCG guys and we talk about the fast moving consumer goods. And she was like adamant, like retail is way faster than FMCG.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I think it is true that retail, smaller operational changes can have a huge impact, right? Which in FMCG is like one step removed. So that might be a part of it, I think. By the way, great example about helmets. How
Yes.
like a kind of sustainability action tripled the business. Very smart. I wonder who thought about that, but
Make taste,
I
not
really like
waste.
that.
Yes.
What?
I'm going to look it up actually.
Yeah.
Um,
What
and
do you think of the Logitech side, like what you mentioned about the company?
overall, with regard to the innovation part, the balance part of with what we just discussed, as well as all the kind of like addressable market and growth opportunities they have on so many different areas. I feel like, of course, for all the reasons that she just mentioned on why she made that choice and why she went there, it just totally made sense in terms of what the company is, what the brand is, which, by the way, again, focusing on your core and having the one brand that's being built with a great products both at work and play felt like a very clear strategy and one that's winning right now, as we discussed. But also having all that excitement about the future. That part I really like. And I know you called her up a little bit about not mentioning AI enough, but she Boise delivered, right? About all the very true things where AI and also the partnership of software and hardware have a role to play in the near future. And that goes way beyond the buzzwords that we usually hear from the marketing side when we bring up AI.
Totally. I mean, I think that's like, it's fascinating because it was good that we mentioned that because she referred back to the product and like all the innovations that they can do to the product. But we also talked about like how, and I think since it's been like a type of a staple brand, I think that a lot of times when people buy Logitech, you're buying like out of need, which happens a lot in electronics. But I think that like there's a huge opportunity for them to like further build the brand and encourage more discretionary spend. Because really like a good consumer electronic can really like enhance your life a lot. It can make your life much better, right? So I think they have a lot of potential there of like the mouse, the hypersonic mouse that you have, like to continue doing strides and that. And I'll be looking a lot at how they innovate in the marketing in the marketing spectrum, let's say, to make their brand more like culturally relevant. I think that's very exciting.
You're
And the
very,
fact,
very right.
and the fact that they've decided to go for one brand instead of multiple brands.
But all this is very applicable to you and me. And sorry to say, we're kind of basic. But imagine what they are doing in the gaming space, because like I play a few video games, but definitely cannot be considered a gamer. But they have these communities where they are really going above and beyond with the way they are enhancing these people's experience and overall like the collective experience also of a community, right? So I'm very much looking forward to what they can do for me, but I know that there are other people out there, a completely different kind of target audience, where their experience is going to be taken to a whole different level.
Totally. And loved her advice. We never heard that. We've done a lot of interviews to make friends at work because it makes the work more fun. And she also said that you build a network, which also helps. So, and that's what we're all about, right, Christine?
Absolutely. You know, my maid of honor, I came from P&C as well. And actually, one of my other best friends came from Diageo. So I absolutely understand that. And ultimately, when you spend so much time getting creative together with other people, unless you know you're completely closed up, you're up for a ride and making really good friends and having a good time while also working,
Totally.
like we do.
Like we do, exactly. Well, if you're listening to this podcast and it's the first time you tune in, I would suggest that you subscribe. We, just as a matter of late introduction, we post 2 interviews a week, Wednesday and Saturday, and it's usually with senior people in both consumer goods, so FMCG, but as you've seen, consumer electronics, consumer healthcare, and also in the retail side. So we have had people from supermarkets, retail media, but also like fashion retail. So what we look for is to really, as we've done in the conversation, look for to understand what people are doing business wise, but understand also the person behind the business, no, and also have fun while doing it. I would say. Anything else I should have said, Christina?
And looking forward to also meeting people in person occasionally, and one occasion being next week.
Exactly. So we do a few live events, which I encourage you to also follow us on LinkedIn. Thanks, Christina. Lovely to see you. Look forward to seeing you in a week. And thanks to all our audience for tuning in again. And we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys.
Content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from Dwyer Partners SL, doing business as the FMCG Guys, or the individual author, host, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Dwyer Partners SL. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Dwyer Partners SL expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we presented in this podcast.